Morgen, like Obsidian, is constantly updating, adding features, adjusting settings, and fine-tuning the way that the tool works. And I could easily make a video every week or every 2 weeks talking about the tool. But I haven't spoken about Morgen and how I use Morgen for quite a few months now, so I figured I'd show you exactly how I set up, how I use Morgen day to day to manage my events, my tasks with everything that I'm doing. For those unfamiliar with Morgen, it's essentially a calendar app that allows you to add tasks and task block, time block inside of your calendar on all devices. So that's Windows, Linux, and Mac. There is also a mobile app for Android and iOS, but in my personal opinion, it's got some room for improvement. It is still the first thing I see on my phone as a mobile widget, and it's also where I add any tasks throughout the day, so it does what I need it to do. But for me, where Morgen shines is on desktop. This is a simple key but global hotkey to open up the app, irrespective of what app you're in, is so powerful. So if I'm in Obsidian and I'm in my writing tool, I'm doing something and I want to check something, Alt-C opens it up straight away. This is such, I feel, like an underrated feature. Now you can see this is opening up in the side. You can make it open up full window if you want, but that's my preference. If I go down to the bottom left and click on my face, then go to preferences, you can see it takes me to the general tab. I scroll all the way down, you see there it is, the global toggle, Alt-C. Now this open Morgen in sidebar format, you can open it at the last position, which could be full screen, and you can disable this. But I make sure Morgen is launched at startup, then I can global hotkey it opens straight away. So when I turn my computer on in the morning, I see this screen, I then go Alt-C, and I can see exactly what I'm going to be doing for the day. You can see how I use Morgen. This is the video I'm currently working on. Now if I go all the way over to the left side, you can see in this ribbon we have 4 icons. At the top is tasks. Alt-A is the hotkey, or I could push space. So I push space on my keyboard, it hides it, I push space and it opens. That's the entire left sidebar. Alt-A opens up the task specifically. So if I push space, it closes. Alt-A opens up the tasks. If I look down, it says open invites. That's Alt-O. So space closes it. Alt-O opens up the open invites. Space closes, Alt-A, there's the tasks. Open invites are a schedule slot, so if I want to send an open invite to someone, I could go to the sidebar, push plus for open invites, or if I have a look to the far right, it says open invites, and I can create an open invite, and as you can see, there's a hotkey O, so if I push O on my keyboard, you can see the sidebar has now changed, says meeting title, and it gives me an option to select times, so I'm available then. I don't want to have a meeting after 9 o'clock. I'm going to title the meeting a quick chat. The notes talk about tomorrow meetup. So if I plan on meeting someone tomorrow, which I actually do, and I want to talk with them quickly beforehand, let's have a chat before 9 o'clock. It then shows there's one available slot, which is this available slot here. I can copy the text and send it to them via WhatsApp or Discord or Slack, which it will be WhatsApp for me. I can then change how long it is, 5 minutes, or how long this meeting's going to be. I will probably keep it to 30 minutes. That's my default, but obviously you've got the customizable preferences there. The time zone, they're in England, so I'm just going to keep it Europe, London, but you can change it to any of these time zones. I can then put the invitee name, the invitee email, add a location, conferencing, so maybe I want this to be on Zoom or Google Calendar, so I can click there and add a meeting from Zoom, go to my meeting room, or create a new meeting through Google Meets or Zoom. I'll manage the integrations later. Then we have the calendar that it's added to, and this gets to what Morgen is. If I click on my profile picture again and then go to preferences, you can see underneath the general, it's got calendars. I've linked one calendar account. This is my Google Calendar account with my business email, danny@dannyhatcher.com. That's the one Google account I've added. I can add more, so that could be Outlook or a CalDAV or anything else. And then I have all of the Google calendars in said account, so events, DH calendar, etc, etc. But as you'll notice, some of these, so this is a subscription calendar on Google Calendar, but Morgen brings it in. This is someone else's calendar. These are also calendars from my family that I've brought in that I want to see. So when I select this option, I can add the new event that's created when a person books a meeting to any of those calendars, or at least the calendars that I can edit. In the advanced settings, you can then say no later than 4 weeks, no sooner than an hour, add buffer times between meetings if you want to have other meetings, or maybe someone else is booking a slot, and when they book a slot you want to have buffer time between the 2 meetings, and you can change the buffer time, so 5, 10, 15, however many minutes you need, maybe to take a loo break if you've got a day full of meetings. You can then also customize the start time, so anytime, quarter hour, half past, or full hour, so 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, or half past or quarter past, or just any time if you want to use like 5 minutes past, which I have seen some people want. Then the availability check, which is in the settings. So when I click here and then go configure your calendars, it would take me to the settings option. So I could have done that through clicking on my icon and then going to availability. So we were in calendars, now we're in availability. So it's just taking you to the setting, and this lets you pick any calendar to check. So if there's an event in my events calendar, it's going to check and say, okay, you can't book a time in this available slot if there's an event there. At the moment, there's no orange event there, so I'm free. If, however, I come out and let's book a meeting, now I have a meeting at 6 o'clock. Now if I want to create that open invite, Now when I want to create that open invite and I drag down the slot, this time slot won't be available with the link that I send. So if we go to show advanced, check availability, I can do not check availability. So don't check to see if there's a meeting there. Obviously I do in this case. Check availability in the one busy calendar or configure your busy calendars, which we've just gone through. Morgen also gives you the option to have a booking page. I have a booking page so I can show it yes or no. I don't want to show an open invite in my booking page, so I don't. And then you can add reminders and alerts for yourself and the other people. So both get the reminder, or the invitee gets a reminder, or organizer gets a reminder. If we add a reminder, you can see, let's go 1 hour before and the organizer gets that one. Let's add a reminder, let's say 30 minutes before the invitee gets the reminder. So you can see we both get a reminder 10 minutes. I get 1 hour, they get 30 minutes. Then when I create and copy the link, Morgen link, copy to clipboard, now it's closed down inside the sidebar. I'm just going to go into Obsidian, paste that link. There's the schedule link. If I click on it, it takes me to the booking page, which when I click on it, there are the meeting slots available. If I drag this meeting out, so this meeting actually takes longer, then refresh the page, go back in, you can see now it's changed the slots. There's nothing before 6:45. There is a history of open invites, so if you click on show booked and show expired, you can see there are all the things that's happened in the past if you do want to see them, but this is the one that's currently open. So it's showing my open invites, and I called it open invite. The booking page is very similar to open invites, but it allows you to have recurring links. So you can see this is the free chat. So if you want to have a chat with me, this is a recurring link. So if I click on the 3 dots, edit link, you can see we've got the name, which is free chat, all the available slots, and you can see inside of the day, 30 minutes, my time zone, location. It's actually creating a Zoom link with a Zoom room that's attached to the event when it's created, and that goes into my events calendar. Update and copy link. I didn't make any changes, but there it is. And you can see I've got the option to remove it from the booking page because it's actually on my booking page, and there is the link. So I can copy, paste it in. So now when I go to my booking page, it says paid coaching or free chat. I click on free chat and there we go. And you can see the 18th is blocked out because I'm unavailable on the 18th. I'm also unavailable on the 30th because I'm away in Portugal. Now I don't actually want this meeting, so I can click and I can either right click, delete event, or make it easier, I can left click and then push delete on my keyboard, which is my personal preference. The next button inside of the left ribbon is Morgen Assist. Now before I click on this, you can see here we've got travel time, travel time, travel time. I didn't make those. Morgen Assist made those automatically. So you can see now I'm inside the Morgen Assist dashboard. If I click on workflows, go to workflow gallery, these are the different assisting workflows that are available. Team meeting organizer, calendar propagation, buffer time, and what I just showed you is automated travel time. So when I click manage, you see in the left sidebar it's now gone down to my workflows. I've been playing around with lots, but when I go to edit workflow settings, the name of the workflow is travel time. The target calendar is my events calendar because that's where all of my main events go. I then have my departure location, which is my home address, which of course I'm going to blur out. And what it's going to do is look at Google Maps and say, hey, from that departure location, how long will it take to get to the desired location in the event? The travel type is, for me, round trip, but you can make it a one-way. So if I take a look at Morgen, you can see I've got to and from the event, and when I click on the event, that's the location that it's going from. So it's going from my home location to that location, and then it's saying, okay, I'm going to drive there. So Google Maps is giving me the time slot. I could pick walking, cycling, public transport. Most of the time I'm driving, so I put driving in there, and then any other additional time I don't bother with any other additional time, but if you need time like 10 minutes to get yourself ready before you drive, then you can add that in. So if we have a look at that in action, if we make that bigger, let's say I'm going to do a coaching session. I'm going to do it at Brighton University. So I type in Brighton University, let's say Falmer campus. Now I'm going to go save. What that's going to do is trigger the workflow, and then Morgen is going to automatically create travel events for that time. So it predicts it's going to take me from 7:41 till 8:15, which is about right. If I click on coaching and then delete that event, these travel time events will also be automatically deleted because the workflow is recognizing, oh, they're not going there anymore. I can get rid of it just like that. Now, if we carry on down the ribbon, you can see we've got John. Now, John is my podcast co-host. You can see there is where I'm doing the podcast, but next week is actually on a different day because we normally record on a Saturday. That was the left arrow key and the right arrow key to move forwards and backwards. But if I push on John's face, you can see I now know when he's busy in comparison to my calendar. If I have other team members, I can also add other team members so I can see when they're busy and when they're not, which is really helpful. In addition to this, if I go over to podcast and double click on the event so I can see the event, I can check the availability. And when I check the availability, what it does is it brings up all of my team members. Obviously, I've only got John here, and says, okay, are they available for this? I have a green icon and they are available. You can see they've actually got the same sort of event, so it's actually merged. Now, when I click on check availability, you can see John is available. The busy event on his calendar is actually the podcast being created on his calendar. But this availability check also works with future meetings if you make a meeting with someone. So if I create a new meeting and let's say add attendee, and I'm just going to add John as an attendee, now if I click check availability, it's going to check whether he's available or not. And it says no. The attendee is not available at this time. And that's because on John's calendar, he's saying he's busy then, so he doesn't want anything just beforehand. So it's saying, nope, he's too busy. Then if I continue down and go past my face, you can see there's a small calendar, and this is the month calendar to jump forwards or backwards any times. Now, I really like this in comparison to other calendar tools where they have the calendar at the top and then the events down in the middle bit in here, because most of the time when I'm in Morgen, I'm in this view so I can see my tasks, then I can see my day, and it just comes up, goes away, comes up, goes away, and I don't have the month view sort of in the way, but if I do want to jump forwards, I can. It's right there, and go forwards to, let's say, the 29th of August. There we go. Or let's go back to today, push the dot, and then the circle. There we go. Heading back into the settings, I'm going to go to preferences. If we go to the top, it's just going to tell you what the features are. I don't find this particularly useful as someone that uses the tool a lot. Shortcuts, if you are not familiar with the regular calendar shortcuts, it does show you them. So hiding the window, minimizing the window, moving forwards and backwards, toggling tasks, going to the day, week, month view, going to specific views, which is useful sometimes. As an example, if I've got my day up here and I decide, actually, you know what, I want to do this on the next day, what I could do is click, drag to the right, and then now I'm on the next day, so I can put it in. So if I go to the left, it's now back a day. Or I can go Control 2, and now it's going to bring up the 2 days, but I find this a little bit squished, so I tend to drag this up, and then I'll do whatever it is that I need to do and plan. So Control 5, for example, now I'm seeing the next 5 days, or Control 3, the next 3. So D for the day, T for today, let's drag that, Alt-C, move it over. But as I mentioned, my preference is to click, drag it slightly to the right, and now it knows, okay, this day, just slightly to the right, okay, now it's this day, or left, and then left. I'm just going to drop it back where it was. If we have a quick look at this menu before I go back into the preferences, you can see there's the shortcuts as well. So if you want to see the shortcuts, it's there. Getting the mobile app, exploring Morgen, so the help docs, the help or feedback, following on X or Twitter, and joining the Discord. I'm in the Discord, and that's where I spend most of my time answering questions and things about Morgen. You've got the latest changes, so the changelog, the roadmap, which we'll go over later. But if we head back to the preferences, this is the main settings inside of the preferences. So these are the general settings. The reason I'm emphasizing this is there are two other places where there are settings. We have default calendar. If we hover over the eye, you can say choose automatic, and Morgen will remember the latest calendar and event was saved in as the default calendar. That is what I've picked. So if I make an event in my events calendar, the next event will default to the events calendar. Or I could set any of these calendars as a default instead. So it will default to this calendar, or the demo calendar, or the task calendar. And I can do the same for tasks. I'm going to go into tasks a little bit later, but you can automatically set up tasks so they go to a calendar. Now I have this automatic, but I also have a task calendar. If all of your tasks go into your task calendar, then you can just select task. Now when you click, you can see it's now automatically inside the task calendar when I click on task. If I change the default calendar to the events, now when I click, you can see it's orange because it's in the events calendar. When I click on task, it automatically goes to the task calendar. The reason I leave these both on automatic is because you can see this is a task, but when I click it, double click, it's in the task calendar, but it's in my task list DH. So it's in a task list and a task calendar. Here's the task list in the sidebar, and it's in the blue task calendar. However, if we go all the way up to the top, you can see this is red. If I double click on this one, this is in the DH task calendar and the DH task list. So when I create this task, I don't want it to be inside the blue task calendar. I want it to be inside the DH channel calendar. So I don't want it to automatically go to blue if I'm making lots of channel tasks. I've just hidden all of my calendars in the month view and just showing the DH for example use case. What I will tend to do when I'm planning is add a task in, and then I will add another task in, and these will be video projects that I plan on doing each week. You can see there's one, there's another one, there's another one. I don't want to have to change the calendar from the blue task calendar to the red DH calendar every single time, so I keep it automatic. That is actually done on my calendar set 3, so it looks more like this, but I saved you the eye pain. The next setting is a fairly new setting as well, which you will have already seen going around me clicking around in Morgen. If I click on here, you see on all events, only on due date events, and then disabled. And what this is slot details. So if I click on this task, there's this pop-up, how I use Morgen right now. If I click on this one, it gives me a pop-up and a join button. So it's the details of the event. This is an event, it was a meeting event, or a task. Something I would like to see in future is more options for details here, so potentially labels, tags, maybe even the description of tasks and events. And then if I go over to this event, I've got a location, but it's not showing in the details, so maybe showing more in the pop-up would be nice for the future, but again, this is me asking feature requests. And there's plenty in the roadmap, which we'll get to later, but if we go back to the settings and change this from on all events to only on due date events, now when I single click on a task, it just highlights the task, or a single click on an event just highlights the event. I need to double click to open up the edit window, or double click to open up the edit window to have anything. However, at the top in these all days, you can see there's a red line at the top of this. This is a due date. So when I single click, now I get the details, but this is a due date, not a task or an event. And then of course, if I go to disable, then it disables everything. So I'm going to turn this on for all events. Now, when you look at the top, you can see there's a red line at the top of this. That's because this is a due date. This is where I get the details. It gives me this block on calendar option, but this isn't an event. It's not a task, it's a due date. Now, if we have a look down in the day, there is the task. If I single click, there's the detail, double click, there's the due date. It's on the 11th. But it also has a planned start and planned end to the task. If I click and then push delete, it's going to unschedule the task. If I go into the sidebar, it was in the planned, so I know down in here, there's that task. It says it's due today, there's the due date, but it hasn't been scheduled, so there's no planned start or planned end, which gives me two options. I can go into the sidebar, I can then drag it in and say, right, I'm going to time block that, and now I've got a little calendar next to the task that says, yep, it's been scheduled for today at 5:15. Alternatively, I can go to the due date and say, okay, block on the calendar. It says blocked on the calendar, and it's automatically blocked it after the time in a slot that's available, and now there's a slot available. It's just put it like right now. And that gets into the unique differences between Morgen tasks and other tasks, which I'll get to a little bit later, but I'm going to drag this down to make sure I actually do it at an appropriate time. So back to the preferences, visibility of scheduled tasks. So those tasks that I have blocked in are scheduled. What visibility do I want them to be? Do I want them to be public or private? If they're public, anyone that can see my calendar sees them as public events on their Google Calendar or Outlook or CalDAV or whatever they have, not as Morgen tasks. Morgen doesn't have shared tasks yet, but having them as public lets people see your tasks so you can see if you're busy or not. Private, obviously it's just like a private event, they can't see what they are. The move task due date is related to the new due date features, which I've just briefly discussed. And here we've got the always, ask every time, and never. What this does is you can see conference follow-up. The due date is on Thursday. If I move this to tomorrow, Morgan's going to say, hey, do you want to update the due date? Because the due date is actually in the past. You can select do not update due date. I don't know why you would do that, but there might be a use case out there. But for me, it's just update due date. Now, the due date has been moved to Friday. Something I really like about this visualization of due dates is I can then just drag it over. So now the due date's on Saturday. When I double click, you can see it's already changed the due date to Saturday. Or I can do it from here and say, hey, no, the due date's actually Thursday, save. And now the visualization's come back to Thursday. So there's lots of flexibility with the due date as well as the planned start and planned end for the scheduled times. Now, always means that it always moves the due date. Ask every time, asks you the question, do you want to move the due date or not? The time zone, regional format, I feel are fairly self-explanatory. It's the first day of the week. I like that it gives you other days. I don't know why you'd start a week on Tuesday, Wednesday. Maybe it's you start your work week on Tuesday, so you want it to start Tuesday. I don't know, but I go with Monday. The initial calendar view is when you first start up Morgen. I like the day view. Maybe you want the week, month, or 2-week view. So when I first launch on my computer and I go Alt-C, I want it to show the day view rather than the week. That's my personal preference. Then we've got the theme. I obviously am in the dark theme. There is the light theme, and that's what it looks like in the light theme. Let's just go to a week view to give you an idea. My preference is dark, but you can have a light theme if you want, of course. No judgments, but everyone knows dark themes better. Continuing down, I really like this flexibility where you can start the day when you want. So I start it at 6 o'clock because I'm asleep before then. I don't need to see my calendar before then. If I click on 0, you can see now I just have this big empty space that I constantly have to scroll down. It's just pointless. So I'm going to start the grid at 6 o'clock, which makes sense. And if your day's shorter, maybe you end the day a little bit earlier and you start earlier. I don't know, but I like this flexibility. Time resolution is an interesting one. In here we've got 5 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, and an hour. I have it set to 30 minutes. So if we have a look at the day, you can see each block is sort of in 30 minutes. So if I double click, there's a 30-minute block. It goes from 15 to 45. If I change this resolution to, say, 5 minutes, now when I click, you see it goes from 7:15 to 7:20. This is extremely granular, and you see there's lots of scrolling because there's lots of stuff going on. But again, if you're really granular in certain time slots, the 5-minute resolution, 15-minute resolution could be useful, or maybe you would just want to be really broad and say, hey, here's my hour's slot, and now there's literally no scrolling for me. So this display resolution is really nice. I know there's a feature request for it to be scrollable, where you like hold control on the keyboard and scroll your mouse wheel, but that's still in the feature requests. The time dragging resolution is very similar, but it's where you're dragging events. Are you dragging them in 5-minute slots, 15-minute slots, or half-an-hour slots? I go 15, so I'm viewing in 30 minutes, but then change it in 15, so maybe 15 minutes before or 15 minutes after. Then we get to our limit events per day. Now, I have it set to the maximum at 20, which is kind of huge, but the reason I do it is so when I come into a month view, for example, I can actually see all of the things that's going on, so I can see the travel, I can see where I'm going to events, I can see anything that I'm showing. So this is my calendar set. If I go into a more busy set, I could, if I wanted to, be in the month view and see almost my entire day. I've got +6 there, +2 there. Whereas if I change this limit per day back to where they normally are at like 3 or 4, now, yes, it looks cleaner, but I got +22. Click on +22 and I've just got a scroll, which just, no, it's not nice. I've seen in other tools, it just comes up with this big long list next to the calendar. I would just personally prefer to see everything in my view like this, but of course, like I say, I'm in calendar set 3, so I push 3 on my keyboard and it hides the calendars I don't want to see. And while we're here, it's probably a good time to actually go over what a calendar set is. So if you go to the top, you can see there is a calendar icon. When I click on the calendar icon, it lets me hide and show calendars like you can normally see in other calendar apps. So you can hide that calendar, show the calendar, but these numbers next to it relate to the number on my keyboard. So if I push 0, all of these calendars that have a 0 next to it will be shown. So the calendar set 3 is what we're currently in. I push 3 on my keyboard, nothing changes because this calendar's in 3, this calendar's in 3, this one's in 3, in 3, in 3, and in 3. If I push calendar set 6, for example, you see demo calendar. If I push 6 on my keyboard, it hides everything except from the things that are on my demo calendar. It does show due dates, which is an interesting point of conversation. I don't know whether I'd want to hide the due dates of things not in the calendar or not. I haven't discussed it inside of the Discord. Maybe it's a conversation worth having. So just for context, the tasks inside of the DH calendar are showing inside the calendar set 6. But again, that's the flexibility of these nuanced workflows and use cases you can have inside of Morgen with due dates and planned dates and calendar sets and calendars available, tasks, events, etc. The way I organize my calendar sets, you can see 0 is like show me everything. Calendar set 1 is my day-to-day work. Calendar set 2 is when I'm working with other people. 3 is my planning. 4 is a specific calendar for YouTube videos. 5 is literally just to see when the UK holidays are, and then 6 is for the demo calendar. But it goes all the way up to 9 if you want to have a calendar set of 9. So if I click on this one and then go to 9, now when I click out and push 9 on my keyboard, it's going to show me all of those events from that calendar, which is the Todoist calendar, which I don't use anymore, which is why it's empty, but it's still showing the due dates, as mentioned before. My personal preference is to keep the schedule with Morgen on because I like to share the tools I'm using. I don't bother keeping it off. Like, if people are going to do things with me or with note-taking, I'm going to share that I'm using Obsidian, so it makes sense to share that I'm using Morgen, obviously, but you can turn it off if you don't want it. Now, looking up at the top, we have the left and right arrow key. I just use the arrow keys on my keyboard because it's easier. The middle takes you to today, so if I'm there, goes to there. Again, I use T on my keyboard, so if I go backwards, T. So these are here. If you want to use a mouse, I use a keyboard. That's just a refresh update, so sometimes it's spinning when you change events or book events or things like that. Then we have some more setting options. So at the moment, you can see I'm GMT, that's my time zone. But you can add more than one time zone. You see I've got 4 other time zones in here, and when I go over to the side, there's the time zones. That's the plus, the minus. It shows me when it's in the evening, when it's in the morning. So it makes working out what time it is in other places nice and easy. But what's also nice is if I go on anything inside of the calendar, so let's say this one, the event, that's the time zone by holding shift on my keyboard. If I go down, go to post vlog, that is the event time. So I don't have to move my mouse over at all. I can just hold shift on my keyboard and it shows me those times when those are events. So when I go to a week view, instead of having to look all the way over here, and I go to, let's say, I'm going Dharma tomorrow, that's where it is. It shows on the calendar, which I think is a nice user experience of where time zones are shown. And of course, you can then add a time zone and then click the drop down and go wherever, and then I'm just going to delete it because I don't need another one, but yeah, lots of time zones. Another setting is, at the moment it's showing week because I'm in the week view. If I push D, it goes to day, it's in the day view. This is the view you're in. So yes, you've got the hotkeys, you've got the custom, but you can choose to show or hide weekends. So if I go to the week view, deselect this, it's now going to hide the weekends. But I personally show the weekends. You can widen the day view or narrow it. So you see there's the day. I personally widen it, as you can see. You can dim past events. So there's the past event. I can dim it or not. I choose to dim it. You can then show or hide completed tasks. I don't want to see all of the tasks that I've completed because there's a lot of them, and for me it just clutters up the view. You can see lots of things that I've done, so I personally hide them. But if you want to see what you've done during the week or day, you can. Show declined events. So if I've been invited to an event, I'm not sure if I've declined any recently. No, I haven't. So it's not actually showing the declined event. I did just have a quick look, but I don't have any declined events because I just generally accept them. If you have declined events, then it will hide from the calendar unless you want to show them. And then we have merge duplicate events. Now, I actually work with my sister a little bit. She helps out with some of the YouTube edits of the other channel. So if we have a look down here, we've got YouTube meeting. If I go to the next week, it's clearer because it's not in the past. There's YouTube meeting. Because I have her calendar on my calendar, when I push 0 to show all of the calendars, you can see now we've got this sort of combined view. If I go to the next week, so you can actually see it a little clearer, her calendar is yellow for me, but orange is my calendar. And there's the merge meeting because we're both doing the same meeting. It doesn't work with John's calendar because John doesn't share his calendar, his editable calendar with me. So I know he's busy, but it's undefined. So it doesn't merge because Morgen doesn't know it's actually the same event, but that comes down to the share settings of the calendars. I think that's how it works anyway. If not, then I'll put a message up on screen because I will have confirmed with the team inside of Discord. Continuing to the right, we've gone through this calendar already. We've got the command bar, which, as you can imagine, is the command bar. So you can create an event, create a task, or do any shortcuts. Now, I don't actually click this ever. I just use the command bar hotkey, which is Control K if you're in Morgen, so Control K brings it up. Now, when you're not in Morgen, there is a global hotkey, which when we go to the settings, preferences, scroll down, that's the one down the bottom, global command bar, Control Shift K is for me. I have it enabled. You can have it disabled. Maybe it's disabled, which is why it doesn't work. So if I'm in Obsidian, for example, and I think, oh, I need to do that thing, Control-Shift-K, edit Morgen video, I can go down and then make it a task. You can see I can add it to a calendar by going /. Let's add it to the tasks calendar. I can add an attendee, but I'm not going to because it's a task. So I'm actually going to go down just so you can see it, but there's the calendar, there's the task list and priority. So if I go greater than DH task list, so now I'm adding a task, edit Morgen video in the task list, in the task calendar. I don't use priorities, but exclamation mark, let's just say high priority, and let's say today 10 p.m. because I've got stuff to do, and then I go enter. You can see there it is. So when I double click, it's in the task Google Calendar, it's in the DH task list, it's got high priority, and it's at 10 o'clock today. Now, something to be aware of, which I didn't mention earlier, when you delete something from the calendar, it doesn't actually delete it. If you right click, you can see unscheduled task and unschedule and delete. When you push delete, what it does, if I open up the DH task list, you can see we've got 4 tasks in here. There's the edit Morgen video. If I delete the task, it's gone, but it's still in the sidebar because what it's done is it's unscheduled the task. Whereas if I right click and then unschedule and delete, you can see it'll unschedule it, and now it's deleted it from the sidebar as well. Just to be clear on that, delete is unschedule, delete and unschedule actually deletes the thing. Continuing over, we then have the search option, and this lets you search any task or event inside of Morgen. So if I say ninja, I know I've got a ninja follow-up in the future, there it is. Blue tells me it's in my tasks calendar, so I know it's a task. Unfortunately, it doesn't show the difference between task and events inside of the search, but I can still find it. So when I click on there, it then takes me to the ninja follow-up task, which is on the 18th. If I click on the past, it's now looking for anywhere it says ninja in the past. So follow up with Andy Ninja, Ninja Chat, and Ninja Arena. Again, when I click on that, there's where I went to the Ninja Arena. And that all brings me to Morgen tasks. As you can see at the top, you can integrate with lots of different things for Morgen. So you've got Todoist, Notion, Microsoft To Do, Outlook, Linear, Google Tasks, and ClickUp. If I go into my face, click on Preferences, go down to the integration section and look at external accounts, you can see there's all the accounts that I've brought in, and each of them have their own view for overdue, due today, due tomorrow, due soon, and then whatever the task list is, whether it's a database or in Notion's case anyway, if it's a database or if it's a list, or whether it's a project or a section, or different integrations have different uses, but as I mainly use Morgen, I'm going to talk about Morgen tasks now. If we have a look at the top of the task sidebar, so if I push spacebar, you see the sidebar's gone. At the top, there is a 3-dot menu. Forget the AI planner, I'm not going to talk about that now, just making that disclaimer. So 3-dot menu, and this is where I can add a new task list, show archive tasks, so tasks that I've completed are archived, I can show them, but I don't actually like to see all of this, I just delete all when I have a bit of time. It's kind of like a recycle bin that you have on your computer. It goes to recycle bin if you want to restore it, but you empty the recycle bin every once in a while. It's like I just empty out the archive tasks. The task lists are here. So I've got trampoline, ES channel, DH channel, business, and planned. But if we skip these sections for a minute, we've also got other task lists. So you can hide task lists. I have a book task list, which I can hide and show, recurring, which I can hide and show, and then no task list. So tasks that are not in a task list. But if we skip over these sections for a minute, you can see I've got other task lists, and you can hide and show, you can reorder. So let's just put trampoline task list underneath or above, and then we've got the inbox, etc. Let's just show that one, hide that one. But when you add a new task list, new task list, and then pick a color, you can pick any of the default colors or click on the option and go anything you want. Let's go with that one, that will do. Done. There's a new task list. It's been thrown at the top. I'm going to chuck it all the way down the bottom, and there's your new task list. Now, when it comes to the grouping of the sidebar, the grouping is actually underneath this divider line. So at the moment it's grouping by task list, which is why we've got inbox, trampoline, ES channel, etc. You can have no grouping or grouping by priority. So if I click no grouping, it's now just got 105 tasks, which I don't think is very useful. So I use task list. If I go by priority, high, I don't have anything. Medium, I didn't realize I actually used, that's when I was testing priorities. Yeah, I don't use priorities, but you could group by priority. So I'm going to go back to my task list. But then you've also got an organize option. So you can group by task list and then organize by priority. So I could have inside of this inbox, let's say climbing video, that's a link to a video. I add a priority and say hi, save. Now when I do the 3 dots, it's then organized by priority. So I've got the task list grouping and then the priority ordering. If I'm grouping by priority, I can then organize by task list. So you do have it the other way around if you want. Let's go task list and then none, because I don't need that. There is then an option to hide empty groups. So if I click on that, because business has nothing in it, I could hide it. I show them so that when I'm adding a task, I can come to the list and go add a task to that list, rather than adding the task inside of the calendar. So let's say click in there. If I type task and then space, it turns it into a task automatically. A nice little tip for you there. So let's type new task, then add this to the list. I don't want to have to add it to the business and then go save. I don't want to do that every time. I just want to be able to add it from the sidebar inside the task list, which is why I keep this setting off. After the grouping and organizing, there is then ordering. So what order it's going to be on top of that. So for me, you can see I've got order by due date. If I go to trampoline, open, you see Sunday, July 21st, August 1st. So it's ordering by due date. Let's just organize by priority, give that a priority of high. Let's give that one a priority of high. So now you can see we've got the grouping of task lists, the organizing by priority, and then the ordering by due date. I can then change that from ascending to descending. You can then have a manual order where you're just dragging it up and down, so your personal preference, or by estimated duration. I don't know anyone that's used estimated by duration, but it's an option. So if, for example, you say, I think this is going to take me 2 hours long, it's going to, I was going to say it's going to show the estimated duration, but I hide that. So estimated duration, it's now going to show it's going to take 2 hours long, and that is what it's going to order by, because this is 2 hours, this is not 2 hours. If we say this one is estimated to take 3 hours and then save, now it's 3 hours, and then we change it to descending, now it's 3 hours and then 2 hours, or ascending, we've got 2 hours and 3 hours. You get the point. Let's just change that back to due date. And as we scroll down, you've seen display labels. So we've got the task list. You can show the task list, or you can hide the task list. You can hide and show any of these things. Because I have the task list shown, if I click on task list, it doesn't need to show task list on the task as well. It's like there's a redundancy, so that kind of becomes pointless. The same with priority. If I show priority, it doesn't need to show the priority on the task because I'm ordering by priority. However, I'm organizing priority. However, if I say none, now it's going to show the priority. So it's smart like that. Morgan's smart like that. Well done, developers. And then I actually want to see my due date, so I put that there. I don't use estimated duration much, so I just have that hidden. But with integrations, for example, like if we go to the Notion integration, we go to the ticks, you see display labels, it shows the labels that you've actually brought in. So the select property from the database, as an example, would be a label that you could hide or show. We've still got the grouping and the ordering, but these settings change depending on the integration. This next setting is about due dates specifically. So for some people, they may not want to see due dates on their calendar. That's these red things up here where you can block the due date. If you don't want to see it, you can go to the menu and then just turn it off. So now all of the due dates are gone. I like to see when things are due because it keeps me on track. But if you don't want to, then you can turn it off. Show scheduled tasks is an interesting one. With the due today, due tomorrow, due soon, those are all automatic lists you can see up here, which are built from the due date. So if I add a task and I don't add a due date and save it, it's got a planned start and planned end because it's been blocked on my calendar. If I go to the inbox, you can see it's been scheduled because it's on my calendar. It's got a little calendar slot, all events in the past. That's because obviously there. So if I drag that forwards, let's put that after dinner. Now it's telling me it's scheduled at 6:30. It's not going to show up in these automatic lists unless I add a due date. So now let's add a due date and say it's due today, save. Now it's going to appear in the due today automatic list. The due tomorrow is obviously due tomorrow, due soon is due in the next 7 days, I believe. And the reason I think this is important is because if you don't use due dates on tasks, these lists kind of become redundant. So the scheduled time, the planned start and planned end, then becomes your use of time. And if you've got a task, so if I turn this off, now you can see those tasks are due, but they're also scheduled, so they're not going to show because I'm not showing scheduled tasks. If I click it, now they're scheduled and they're due. And this is where the workflows can be extremely custom because maybe you want to see all of the tasks that are due today and have been scheduled. Maybe you want to see tasks that are due today but haven't been scheduled, so you're going to say show the due today but turn that off, so I know this task is due today but I haven't scheduled it yet, so I need to schedule it. Now once I've scheduled it, it's going to disappear from the list. I personally keep show scheduled tasks on because one, I want to see all of these tasks if I've scheduled them or not, but also because it allows me to drag the task from the sidebar in again. So this is what's called multiple tasks or multiple sessions inside of Morgen. This task and this task are exactly the same, except they've got a different planned start and end. If I have a look in the sidebar, there it says multiple sessions next today at 6:15. So if I tick off that task at 6:15, I've completed the task, but I have another session. So if I hover over now, it says next today at 7:30. And what's really cool about this is I can change this session. So if I double click, I can change the information, even the name of the task. So I can say task session. Let's actually put this in the book task list and save it. And you can see the outside's gone green because that's the task list. So when I double click, you can see the blue line there is the blue color of the Google Calendar, but the green from the task list is the outside of the task. And because I was silly, if noticed, it's disappeared from the list because I'm not showing the book task list. So if I come into here and then show the book task list, now it's showing the task. There's the task. That's the original name of the task. It's in the book list called task, but the task session is called task session. If I drag this in again, update due date. Yes, update the due date, please. Now when I double click on the task, maybe this is me reviewing the book. I can then change it from that task list to, let's say, the ES channel. Save. So now the task is due tomorrow because there's the due date, but we've got multiple sessions of the task. So let's just tick that one off and then also tick that one off. It's still in the ES channel task list, but if I hover over, it says all sessions in the past or completed. Now, because this is a task, it's completed. It won't disappear until I tick it off. I don't actually go into the list to do that because there's a due date. So I can tick it off here. You see, there's the task, it's due. When I tick it off there, it's going to say, yep, you've now been completed, disappears from there, and I'm all good. The overdue list, as you can imagine, is where you've got a due date that's in the past. So that was due yesterday. There's the due. I was meant to do pre-reading, and I'm still sort of doing pre-reading, but I haven't scheduled in when I'm next going to do it, so I'm just going to leave it there as something overdue, because I normally have all of these open, because this is my view. If I push D, and then this is how I live. I have the overdue, the due today, due tomorrow, which is basically my priority, and then what I'm actually doing today. Obviously this took longer than expected. If we now have a look at my inbox, I use this like an inbox. Any new task comes into the inbox, including long URL links that I've just saved while I was on my phone. And what I do with this is one of two things. I either schedule it, so if I want to do it, I'll drag it onto the calendar. Now it's been scheduled, and what I'll then do is click and move it from my inbox to a list that's appropriate. So I have a planned list. So yes, I've planned to do it. Save. I'm not going to because I don't want to do it then. So let's just delete that so it's not scheduled. Or if it's something I want to get done, what I'll do is I'll click, then add a due date. So let's say I want it done by, I probably want this done by the 13th. Save. Now I've got a due date on it. I don't really need it in my inbox. So again, click inbox, and then I will go to planned and then save it. And you can see the due soon has just gone up to 9 because that's where it's gone. It's right there. It's in the due soon. So when I'm in my normal view of all these things, I can see it's there. I don't need it in my inbox. So if we have a quick look at my planned list, you can see that's due and scheduled, due. And then we've got some scheduled things in here. And then Morgen use video, that's the task that I was playing around with earlier, so I could probably actually delete that. And you know, just adding another feature, you can see every task has a plus next to it. So skill gallery of GIF of me, if I push plus, I now have a subtask. So record me doing skill. And what this has is everything a normal task has. You can change the task list, priority, estimate due date, etc., etc. And so let's say I'm going to do that, then I now have a planned start, planned end, and you can see There it is. However, the biggest limitation I have at the moment with using subtasks, which is why I don't use them, is when I click, I can't work out what the parent task is. I know this is on the roadmap, so let's have a look at the feature request and roadmap of Morgen and what they're working on at the moment. So to get to the roadmap, we're going to go there and then just click on roadmap. 536 feature requests. That's a lot of feature requests. I know I've upvoted quite a few of them, but you can see in progress, auto schedule tasks. That's the AI planner thing. The reschedule incomplete tasks, I think, is also the AI planner thing that you saw inside of Morgen. So that's this one up here. I'm still fiddling around with that. It's beta testing at the moment. Then we've got the connect and disconnect calendar accounts from mobile in progress. But what's really interesting for me is two-way sync, Notion integration improvements, two-way sync, tags for tasks, which has been requested, but Obsidian integration. I've been nagging and nudging and pushing the Obsidian integration for a long time, and I like the discussions that we've had in Discord, and I'm looking forward to seeing it work. I've heard some ideas. I think I know what it's going to look like and how it may work, but do let me know as an Obsidian user, if you're an Obsidian user, what you'd like to see. Task blocks into Morgen or files into Morgen, combination of the two. Like, what are your ideas? I'm intrigued. But yeah, this is how I've been using Morgen. This is how I use Morgen. This is an introduction of most of the features that I leverage, that I choose not to use. But of course, there's the whole philosophy about how I plan stuff and workflow and the rest of that. But I need to eat now. Bye.